In the New Hope prison complex, there has been a prisoner who the guards call Tithonus, who has been on death row for years, not due to a long wait, but because the state has already tried to execute him twice, and he has survived both times. Now he is kept in a cell while the prison waits for a specialist from the state who can find a way to kill the seemingly invincible prisoner. Now that day has come. The specialist is in an interview room with the prisoner, and a guard who chooses to remain anonymous watches the interview behind the two-way glass, watching them just talking. If the specialist has a name, I wasn't given it. My boss just told me to record the interview with the camera and to watch the specialist and prisoner 401 talk. If something happens that isn't supposed to happen, I would push the button for assistance. The specialist assured me that there wouldn't be any trouble. I escorted the man through the prison. He went through the check-in with ease, signing the check-in sheet with a quick signature and an attitude that said, "Just get it done already." He was a very tall man. He has to duck when he goes through any doorway. His suit is a professional navy blue that screams, "I work for the government." The pin of the national flag on his lapel only cements that further. His face was the thin and haggard look of someone who worked long hours away from the sun and spending more than a few shifts skipping lunch to catch up. He had 2 golden rings on his hands, both of them marked with a skull with a sword through the top of it. Despite all of it, his head is shaved cleanly, not a single hair remaining, not even eyebrows nor a whisper of chin hair. Around his neck is a single gold chain with a Y-shaped charm that almost looks like a cross with the top missing. Other than that, the only thing he carried with him was a notebook and 2 pens in his shirt pocket. And even though his look was cancer patient who wasn't allowed near the window, he still commanded everyone around him with both the authority and experience of someone who expected and knew he was going to be obeyed. The way he spoke to the receptionist on a first-name basis, the way he didn't bother waiting at any of the checkpoints, nor did he wait for the doors to unlock and open. He stepped towards the doors with confidence and power. Each time the guard at the door struggled to get the door open in time, without wasting the specialist's time. One door, when the guard was slow at opening the door, and the specialist had to pause his march. He stared daggers at the guard through the glass, and when the door was finally open, the specialist opened his notebook to write down the guard's name as he slammed the notebook shut, and he continued his march towards the interview room in the visitor's ring of New Hope. Even when I am guiding the specialist towards the interview room, he doesn't bother to acknowledge me. I am just another part of the scenery, another part of the job that he has to have to do his job. I am no more interesting to the specialist than a visitor's badge, no more worth acknowledging than the floors he stood on. If I did something wrong, I am sure he will let me know and write my name down in his book. Only when he stands outside of the interview room does he turn to me and speak. His voice was like a trumpet, not the quiet voice of a bureaucrat, but the voice of an opera singer, like the voice was expected to be heard across the stadium. No matter what you hear, no matter what he says, no matter what you see, you cannot interfere, he said with a tinge of regret in his eyes, the tired eyes of someone who has warned against the same danger many times, because he expects me to not understand the danger. I only nod to show I understand as I head to the adjoining observation room. I am the only one in the observation room. The 2-way bulletproof glass made the glass mirrored where the interview is, but I could see them on the observation room side. I was alone because everyone knew that Tithonus could break the bulletproof glass easily if he wanted to. I turned on the camera and started recording before prisoner 401 was brought into the room. I don't have to wait long. Prisoner 401 is escorted inside by two of our largest guards, and even then Tithonus towered over the guards. A wide and very strong-looking man who made even the prison's pink uniforms look intimidating. While not quite as tall as the specialist, the prisoner was still almost 7 feet tall, and he weighed almost 300 pounds and nothing but muscle. Even by cooperating with the guards to let them both cuff him and chain him to the floor, he acts like he is in control of the situation. His body is covered in deep scars, brands, and tattoos that he earned both inside and outside to the prison, which only adds to how much fear he inspires. His hair is long, dark, and kept unkempt behind his neck. The worst scar is the scar he has around his neck, completely around his neck like a permanent necklace, a relic from the last time we tried to execute him. Even while cuffed, even while chained, Tithonus moves with confidence that I haven't seen in any of the other prisoners. He is kept from all the other prisoners not just for their safety, but also because he kept organizing the other prisoners into a cult-like gang. The first time he was in general population, he started a riot within hours, completely killing the leaders of the other gangs with his bare hands, their skulls crushed in his fingers. So he was isolated for a while until the warden was confident that they could control his influence over the other prisoners. Last time he was out in general population, in just a week, the prison riot nearly took over the prison. Even a lot of the guards joined in the riot against the other guards. We only gained control of the prison by gassing the entire population, and even then the state was ready to use a firebomb on the complex to keep the population under control. By then the rule was clear. Only by keeping him separate from everyone does it seem to keep him mostly under control and keep the population from rallying around him. Still, though, the prison took every precaution with him. Fully armed guards who won't talk to him, and reserves kept nearby, just in case he decided that today was the day he would start a fight. Guards who don't stay around him longer than a few days at a time, out of fear that the guards would join him. Again. Some days he is cooperative as any well-behaved prisoner, obeying the guards, eating his food quietly, and just waiting in his maximum security cell like a patient saint. And on other days, he just decides that he wants a fight, and even a prison guard in full riot armor isn't kept safe from his insanely deadly blows. I have personally seen prisoner 401 punch through the back of a guard's head while he was wearing the riot helmet. Bone, flesh, ballistic glass, Kevlar, shatterproof plastic. It didn't matter. When he got violent, he would kill as many people as he wanted, either until the bullets and gas took him down for a while, or he simply got bored and he went back to his cell. And that is the unspoken truth about his incarceration. More often than not, he only goes back to his cell because he chooses to. Even those few times we took him down, I'm not confident that we actually took him down. I'm afraid that we are like insects when fighting him, and I still know it's better than giving him free rein. Officially, Tithonus has 45 confirmed deaths when he was caught, convicted, and sentenced, all killed by his bare hands. He didn't bother with a lawyer. He confessed to all of those deaths and more. Since he has killed at least 50 people since coming to New Hope, I am certain that he has killed more than just has been confirmed, and definitely more than he has admitted to. So getting the judge to give him the death sentence was to be expected. What wasn't to be expected was what happened next. First, he was given the electric chair after 2 years on death row. He roasted on the chair, his eyes melting, his tongue severed by his teeth, and his heart stopped. Only for him to start laughing less than 30 seconds after they checked his pulse. Even with his nervous system fried and new scars and burns resembling frost all over his body, Tithonus only shook off the electric chair. Even when they turned the electric chair on a second time, a third time, even a fourth time, he kept laughing. He kept living. Every time his body would fry more and more, but he would just laugh it off each time. New scars blooming on his body, his flesh cooked, the smell of burnt pork filled the room, and still he lived, his heart refusing to stop for more than a few seconds. Eventually, they gave up. Not because they wanted to, but because the electric chair and the generator powering it both burned out. They escorted prisoner 401 back to his cell, while the witnesses whispered among each other, while sometimes someone needs an extra jolt to bite it. They had never seen someone walk away from the electric chair. His flesh was already beginning to heal from the burns and electricity, pink flesh replacing ashen flesh and skin, and by morning he was no worse for the wear. Even his tongue was back, and the electric burns on his flesh looked like they were scars years old by that point. As the news reached the warden, they quietly passed on the news to the prison population and the media that there was a malfunction with the electric chair that let Tithonus survive, rather than accept the fact that the electric chair didn't work. That didn't work. The prisoners nearly rioted after sharing stories about the unkillable man, and the media ran a paper with the headline, "Condemned Man Walks from the Electric Chair," until the state ordered them to retract that article. Even so, his story spread among both the civilian and prison population, and the warden wanted to keep it under control. The next execution method, tried 4 years later, was more old-fashioned. The warden got a guillotine from one of his friends in the local museum to try and quietly execute Tithonus without spreading more rumors. So on a moonless night, they brought prisoner 401 outside to the yard to be executed away from the view of media, away from the prisoners, and away from witnesses. Officially, the warden said it was to avoid the rumor mongering that was spreading through the prison. I think it was because the warden subconsciously knew what was going to happen. Tithonus went to the guillotine easily, laying his head down, staring into the basket, his arms and legs chained to the side, even though he went through it all willingly. Didn't say a single word, just a wide smile on his face as he laid down, looking down into the basket. The guillotine was tested before. It was known that it would cut a normal man's head easily. But even with the knowledge that the blade worked, the guards all worried that Tithonus wasn't just unkillable in rumor, but truly unkillable. Still, that didn't stop us from trying. The blade was let go, both the blade and weight brought down by gravity, bringing the blade into his neck. The blade's fall as inevitable as gravity, decapitation as sure as death, his execution as sure as the stars above. His head separated from his neck easily in a single cut, like a hot knife through a stick of butter. His head dumped into the basket with a thunk, and he still didn't die. He didn't wait 30 seconds to start laughing. Not this time. He just started laughing the moment his head was cut off. His head was removed from his body. He had no lungs, no diaphragm, no throat to bring air to his mouth, and his head just laughed at the attempted execution. Even though the execution failed, his body and severed laughing head were brought to the prison's crematorium. The body parts placed on the slab. The body was still, the body not bleeding, the heart still beating, and the head laughing, blinking, and staring at those who pushed the head into the crematorium oven. The warden watched the body burn in the oven all night. But no matter how long prisoner 401's body was burnt, there was always more flesh to burn, more fat to melt. His body burned, but it also kept laughing, kept healing, and kept living. The laughs loud enough to echo outside of the steel of the crematorium oven. After hours of trying to burn it, the body and head were brought back to his cell and dumped, in a desperate hope to find a new solution eventually. By dinner time that day, his head was reattached, the burns faded, and despite a new scar on his neck, Tithonus still didn't seem to care that we were trying to kill him. His laughs only stopped when his head was reattached. By that point, the warden asked for assistance from the state, and we had no idea what else to try, and the state promised they would send a specialist in a few months. It took 3 years. In that time, unofficially of course, a dozen new attempts were made on prisoner 401's life. The warden would never admit being behind any of the attempts, especially with how badly they failed each time. Poison, ground glass, metal shavings, acids, and even highly caustic alkaline substances were slipped into the prisoner's food, and he ate it as eagerly as normal. We tried denying him both food and water for months, but other than making him cranky enough to attack and partially eat a guard while still alive and struggling, it didn't do much to him. His meals were reintroduced to keep him from trying to eat someone else. Someone tied him to the bottom of a tub with iron chains, a foot of water over his head, his legs and arms tied down so he couldn't displace the water. He broke out of the chains after a full day of remaining submerged. He didn't struggle at all until he finally got bored and broke the chains. The entire time, he simply remained still in the tub, bubbles occasionally leaking from his nose, but his heart kept beating the entire time. His skin wasn't even wrinkled as he remained beneath the water. Next, someone tried submerging him in acid, keeping him in the tub with iron chains, but the chains around him dissolved before his flesh got close to dissolving. His skin turned a little pink in the acid, but that was it. It was like his skin healed quicker than it could be dissolved. Even though he was submerged in the acid, with acid in his lungs and eyes, he didn't care. When his chains dissolved, he simply stood up and walked himself to the cell. His clothes dissolved in the acid, tapping a guard on the shoulder and only saying one thing: better luck next time. They even tried feeding him radium, hoping that the radiation would kill him. He lost his hair for a few days before it grew back, and he apparently developed an immunity to the heavy radioactive metal. We had to carry Geiger counters and avoid being close to him for too long for over a week. He was radioactive enough that staying near him increased our chances of cancer, but his body simply grew immune by that point, and when it wasn't, it still healed quicker than radiation could kill him. Thankfully, whatever kept him alive also kept him from being radioactive for too long. Each time we tried to kill him, it only seemed to be amusing to him. If there was any advantage of trying to kill him, is that when we were trying to kill him, he wasn't bored and it kept him docile. I had no idea what a government specialist could do that we hadn't tried already. I thought about these things as I watched the specialist enter the interview room. As the specialist entered, ducking his head beneath the doorway, I saw the prisoner blanch. I had never seen the prisoner so much as startle, let alone actually be afraid like he was when he saw the specialist. It was like he knew the specialist from somewhere. The specialist pulled out his notebook, and with a pen from his shirt pocket, he wrote down a single line of the book. "I see you recognize me. So, you know why I'm here?" the specialist said with bored ease. "You're going to try and kill me. Well, let me save you some time, weak man. You can't. No one can. Powerful warriors slew me in battle over and over until exhaustion tore them apart. And still I remain. They erupted Vesuvius trying to kill me. I burned and I came back from burning ash, and I dug my way out of that mass grave. They tried feeding me to sharks, wolves, bears, lions, and even the Leviathan. And here I still am. They turned the holy blades, unholy knives, cursed daggers, and silver bullets to make my heart stop beating. They tried prayers, curses, and spells. They tried denying me air, food, water, sun, and company. They turned to their new god of science against me. Radiation, acid, poison, toxins, molten lead, even tried exiling me to the dark reaches of space. I am still here, and they aren't here. What can you possibly do that they cannot?" Tithonus said. But despite his words, his voice shook like he was terrified of the man across from him, the specialist who just kept writing while the prisoner spoke. "What am I going to do?" "Well, I thought it was obvious," the specialist said as he took a step towards prisoner 401, who flinched with every step he took. His hands still chained as he struggled, but thankfully for him, it took time to break out of the iron chains. As the specialist stepped next to the prisoner, he ran his fingers through his hair. This wasn't supposed to happen. Getting close to the prisoner, let alone touching him, was supposed to be something I would have to report. My hands hovered over the red button that would call an emergency. But then I saw the specialist's eyes. They met my own through the glass, and I knew that if I didn't listen, I was going to be in a lot of trouble with the state. Something I definitely didn't want to be in trouble with, as I kept my hands firmly on the table. Then the specialist pulled out a small penknife out of his shirt pocket as he grabbed a tuft of the prisoner's hair, and he quietly cut the hair from the rest of his head. Then he tucked the tuft into his journal, slamming it shut as he put both his pen and his penknife away. "I'm done." As he walked towards the door, the guards letting him out. Despite standing in the room with the two men, the guards didn't react to anything like it was unusual or even all that remarkable, despite the prisoner's boasts and the specialist's strange actions. At first, I thought the prisoner was too shocked to react. At least that is what I believed, until I saw that his eyes were rolled into the back of his head, and his entire body was rigid as a board, almost like a seizure. His fingers clenching the edge of his table so tight that I could see the metal of the table bending, and drops of his blood dripping from his fingertips. His mouth open in an O as he silently screamed. Despite the lack of noise, I could see in his eyes that he was in agony, a pain far greater than any he faced before. The guards in the room now noticing something happening as they approached him, their guns extended, but careful not to get too close, worried that it was a trick or something that was contagious. Then I saw the rest of his hair turn gray. His face grew wrinkled. His muscles melted like ice on a hot sidewalk. His eyes also turned milky as cataracts and webs formed over his eyes, leaving him blind to the world around him. His skin grew thin, his veins and blood vessels visible through his now translucent skin. His hands and legs jerking and shaking, but doing so with no power behind it anymore. His teeth grew rotten in his mouth, falling out with rotten yellowed enamel. His tongue fell from his mouth. The blood that dripped from his mouth, or any wounds that opened on his flesh, quickly turned thick, brown, and hard before it had a chance to hit the floor, like it was coagulating instantaneously. His breathing got quicker and quicker and weaker and weaker, like he was struggling to get enough air. His clothes grew loose on him as he kept aging. His hair and skin turned thinner and thinner, while the bones inside of him shattered like gravel. This entire time he held himself up. Now he was too weak, with now worn-away muscles and shattered bones. He fell forward. His body turned to dust before his head hit the table in front of him. His pink prison uniform still left behind, but every trace of Prisoner 401 was just now dust, and even the blood he shed from his body turned to dust. Even with the camera evidence and the testimony of the other guards, people didn't believe me that Prisoner 401 simply died. The specialist just walked out of New Hope with ease. No one was able to tell the guards on the outside to stop him until after he had already left. I found myself in meeting after meeting as the incident rapidly escalated up the management tree, showing all of them the video, each of them not believing it, and still it escalated. They were all convinced that it was something that I did, and I didn't know why they thought it was me, until I was in a private meeting alone with the warden, where they asked me 2 questions. Why was he in the interview room? And who is that man across from him? I didn't understand why the warden was asking this when they asked the state for a specialist. So I reminded the warden about the state specialist, the meeting that they were supposed to have with Prisoner 401 to evaluate what the best way to execute him is. The warden only looked more confused for my answer. Didn't anyone tell you? The specialist visit was postponed again. She doesn't get in until tomorrow.